My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to This Song Is Yours. We're a music podcast that chats to artists, musicians and creatives on their songwriting craft and upcoming projects. I'm your host Simon Fink and welcome to episode 265. We have not one but two guests today in the form of Heather and Jono from Melbourne band Cry Club. The incredible duo released their brilliant record Spite Will Save Me on Friday, and they're joining us on the pod today to discuss the making of the record. We also featured their song Get Up on our brand new sibling podcast, This Song Radio, which is exclusively on Spotify. We launched it on Monday, and it's a show where we can showcase new music, have roundtable discussions about important topics, and have an outlet where we can talk to other creatives about the state of the music industry in 2023. You can find the link to that show in our episode show notes, which is where you'll also find all of our socials like Insta, TikTok, and YouTube. If you're not already, go follow us across our socials and follow this brand new show as well. Our guest today is Cry Club. They are a genre-bending duo from Melbourne, Australia, who make what they describe as queer bubblegum punk music. Having burst onto the scene in 2018, they caught the nation's attention with their debut record in 2020 with God, I'm Such a Mess. That record found itself nominated for Air Awards and a Music Victoria Award, and it showcased the music of Cry Club to a whole new legion of fans. Last week, they returned with their second full-length record, which is titled Spite Will Save Me, which is a strong contender for my favourite title of a record this year. It sees a slightly heavier progression in the band's sound, but has not lost any of the fun or camp nature of what the band does best. In today's episode, we have Heather, Riley and Jono Tooke from Cry Club on the podcast to talk about recording this new record in lockdown and how they wanted to try and experiment with their sound. We discuss working with Alex from Kingswood and how queer icons of the past also helped find this new iteration of Cry Club. We also discuss how they're heading out on the road across August and September. We're heading to their Adelaide show and you should go see them as well, regardless of what city you're in. The tour dates for Cry Club, along with details on where you can buy Spite Will Save Me, can be found within today's show notes. And we want to say a massive thank you to Amber from Inside Out Agency for her help with this episode. Here is our conversation with Cry Club. Please welcome to This Song Is Yours, Jono and Heather from Cry Club. Hello, how are we?
Good.
Yeah, great. Just super excited to be on. I've been listening to the podcast this morning, so I'm like, I get to be on it now.
Ooh,
ready to go.
Very exciting to hear. Who, out of curiosity, who did you pick to listen to?
I was listening to the Katie Steele episode because I grew up on Little Birdie. So I was like, I've got to do that one.
Nice. I'm always slightly worried. Sometimes people say that they listen to it in preparation and I'm worried that I'd like to think we don't put out bad content, but, you know, not everything can be a winner. So I'm glad to hear that was a good one. Well, no, thank you both for coming on. It's exciting. It's a very exciting time for Cry Club. There is a brand new record out at the moment. It is called Spite Will Save Me. Firstly, congratulations on this brilliant record.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Horns up.
Rock and roll. It's out.
Horns up for this record. It is a brilliant record, but I would love to just, I guess, firstly touch on the title and where that came from.
Honestly, we we have this thing with titles where we always want our titles to be like really representative of the music. And our first record, we'd had that title for so long. And the title for this one took forever. We spent like probably a year after the album was actually recorded, did we finally land on the title. And I can see I've got like a Apple Note thing that's like filtering down to the title, and I hit that, and then I think I called Heather being like, I think I've got it. Finally. Yeah. It's been years.
Yeah. It's we always wanted to have a mix of like the like tongue in cheek, like what is the like thesis statement of the album, and how we're feeling. I think a lot of the time is like it's a snapshot, specifically the title of like the moments of writing the songs.
Yeah. It's like the feeling of like us being in lockdown and we kind of having these moments of like all these negative experiences that we were able to kind of like kind of explore the emotions of those in the safe space, which was writing songs and going through those feelings in the music. So it was a thing where it's like, hey, maybe the fantasy that's involved in all the anger of this, like just living our fantasy best lives, is actually the thing that's kind of getting us through this moment. So kind of a really good reflection of the writing process, actually.
Yeah, we had a bit of bad luck as well, like leading up to, and then 2020 and lockdowns and stuff like that. So, leaning into that, like, especially with Spite, I think we knew we wanted it to be something like, kind of like bratty and...
Yeah, but also something like quite theatrical. Like I think the Lingua Ignota record that came out, she's got the best titles. It's just like amazing. Like they feel like names of like classical art pieces that are like horrifically violent. And I'm like, oh, that's such an awesome aesthetic. I'm like, can I have a little bit of that, please?
Well, what was it? I read one article on the new record where I think you were quoted as saying, and so please correct me if I'm wrong, you were quoted as saying, if the first record was related to queer joy, then this was about wrath.
Yeah, absolutely.
If that was,
that's the one.
Yeah, like there's so much that is involved, with like queer pride and like all of everything that comes along with it. And there's like the running joke of like July being Queer Wrath Month, like immediately followed by Pride, like which other sins, and it felt so fitting.
Yeah, I think a huge one is like the framing of like queer pride is like there's so much queer music that I interact with is like very like bubblegum pop, and I love that world, I absolutely adore it. But then the amount of like queer rock things that are like heavy guitar music or like quite aggressive, not necessarily just guitars, but it feels like that space doesn't have a lot of people in it, or not as many people in it. Like when you think queer music, you think like big diva pop stars, and it's like I want to think about like the rock stars of queer music,
100%. I think even I'm trying to think of a few examples now. Even the ones that border on the edge of rock, we've had them on the podcast and we've filmed some stuff with them. They're very kind people. We had Moona on the podcast, and they're lovely.
Obsessed.
But, lovely and incredible. Horns up for Moona. But they... Almost what you're saying is that like they're still rock and pop, and I feel that there isn't maybe enough representation within just that pure rock world, which I personally love what Cry Club is doing with this record, because you are definitely pushing a slightly heavier sound this time around, I would say.
Yeah, just a little.
It's something we were kind of, I think just the over the course of exploring writing in lockdown, we were having the experience of pushing in so many different directions that when we were looking at all the songs that we had at the other side of it, it was a case where we could have had like a record that touched every base possible, where it's like, oh, all these wide genre experiences. But I think we saw like a couple of records came out around the end of 2020 that felt very kind of listless in terms of how intentional they were. Like it felt like they could have been more direct. And there was a few ones where I was like, oh, that's what could happen if we don't make as clear of a statement, is that we risk diluting what we're saying. So I think for us, steering into like essentially a process of curating the songs that were the rock songs and going like, what if this is a record in itself, out of the big pool of like, I think we wrote like 60 something songs in lockdown. Out of that pool, here are like 10 of the rock songs, and that felt really kind of comfortable together.
Yeah, and we did quite a lot of touring as well. We were like flat out, like end of 2019, like start of 2020. And there's always this thing we try sometimes. I think like as a cost saving measure, we'll drive a lot where we can. And there's always like the weird part of like 6 hours into a 10-hour drive, and it's like, all right, bring out Judas Priest. Like, yeah. I think that's it too. We've been listening to like a lot of Judas Priest as well, and being like, so funny that there's like such a queerness in that. But
well, the singer of that band being someone who came out so long after the like, I can't remember when it was that he came out, but like, you look back at the music and it's so easy to see queerness in it. And it's just like, oh, it would have meant so much. Like, it's great that he's out now, but I can't imagine what it would have meant to younger audiences during the peak of Judas Priest to be able to go like, yes, like it's someone I can look up to.
100%. I would love to know, I guess, in relation to the recording of the album and then whittling it down. Just a second ago, you mentioned that there was 60 odd tracks that could have made a record. How do you determine, and I guess it is not difficult, it might be easier with two members rather than if the band was 4 or 5, but what's the democracy like within the band that you're able to choose what songs work on the record and what makes that final cut?
I think we're kind of blessed in that, yes, we're 2 people in a band, but we share exactly one brain cell. So it's very rare that we have creative differences, and quite often, most of the time, we have like differences. We've just misspoken. Yeah.
So I can't think of a single like big disagreement we've had, and it's like we both I think definitely know when there's a song that's like, this is done, send it off, like that's cool, versus like, this isn't quite what we want to say yet, like it feels like a draft version, there's something missing, but it goes into the like recycle pile, and then we pull stuff out of it. There's a few songs that were written around the same time as everything else, which it was just one song that had this like hectic guitar on it that we loved, but it wasn't quite working, and then we took the guitar out and then kind of sampled it a bit and like messed around with it, and then out of that came like 3 or 4 new songs from just that one guitar part. So it's kind of hard, like we have to like call it at some points, but we're usually it's pretty easy to agree on when it's done.
Yeah, as well, like I think our bar of when a song is done is like I think the friends that I've shown our material, like our demos to and stuff like that, they're just like, your standard of something being done is like crushingly high. Is kind of the thing where we always want to make sure that like the quality of the songwriting alone has to carry the weight of everything. So that means that, let's say it was like, I can't remember the exact number, but let's say it was 60 for the new record, and a bunch of them might have been like pure pop songs. A bunch of them might have been a bunch of other things. The process of landing on these 10 would have been, here are the 10 songs, like here in the rock world, here are the 10 songs where they're most happy with. And let's just, like, it's essentially that like, the Kill Your Darlings thing of like, if a song it was like 90% good, sorry song, you're staying in the recycling pile.
Yeah. And then even the songs we do save, we kind of go in with like the scalpel, like which bits can we chop out of you, and like how do we what can we cut out of this? Is there too much? There's the first song, Get Up, is the only song I think ever where we've added more time into the song.
Yeah. That was an interesting one where we're so used to like being like such strict editors of our music, and then working with our producer on this record, Alex. He was like, "Nah, you just let it hang out for a second. Just live in the world a bit." And we're like, "We're allowed to do that?" Like coming from the pop world where it's like
unheard of.
You just got to get to it quick.
You did work with, as you mentioned, Alex from Kingswood on this record, and from what I read was that I guess in those moments he not pushed, but I wanted to say allowed you to try those different things. And I realize that's a very cliche line to use, but almost allow yourself to go to any thought that you had and thought maybe we could push it to 11. He was like, yeah, sure, go do it at 11 and see where it lands and see where it possibly goes from there.
Yeah, it was a completely different experience working with him compared to Gab on the first one. There was a real, kind of like cowboy energy. Alex in general has a big cowboy energy, which is great because it's like everything doesn't have to be so like strict and like perfectly cut and like dialed in to the millisecond. It's like, what if we just did this? Like, we got all these guitars. Yeah. Let's play some of them. Yeah. It was like very fun.
Like so much of it was about like capturing the specific moment working with him, where it's like, I think we can get dialed into such of the micro that having the hand of a producer is really handy for us to actually see the macro of the song a bit, where we're so dialed into every single word, every single note on the guitar, bass and drums that we're like, what about this? And he helped us really like zoom out and go like, oh, okay. But a huge one, and it's shown up over the course of doing the first record and over the course of doing this one, which was the idea of like, so much of what we've gotten from these people is them telling us to just trust our own instincts. And to just like the times where we second guess ourselves are the times that they have to step in. Is the moments where we're like, but what if someone else thinks something about this, and then each time someone has to come in and go like, no, you're fine, guys. Literally, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Look, I personally kind of love that. I think that it is. Well, there's. Obviously, producers have their role within the industry and they do, but they're obviously working with you as well because they know that you know what you're doing, if that makes sense, that there's a confidence in the music that both of you are writing. I would love to, I guess, know where the two of you began writing together, where that first spark of Cry Club kind of began.
Well, the first time it kind of didn't happen.
Yeah, I sent Heather some demos that I was like, here are some instrumental demos. Like, let's write some music together. And then Heather got like too anxious about it.
I like never opened them.
They were good. I should find them.
I think I listened to them, but like I'm not a songwriter. Like we met in uni because I was doing acting, and had like a lot of singing training, but I'd never really like written anything. It was mostly like theater stuff. But yeah, I like just offhandedly wanted to start like a Cure cover band.
And I was like,
yeah,
no, we have a thing we could do.
I just didn't think I could write songs, but Jono was like, you're going to come to my house and we're going to sit down and like, I'll show you what I've got. What do you think? Here's how it works. Yeah. It's my only experience writing songs is like this thing that we do, which is like sitting down with, like instrumental tracks and like going from there.
Yeah, I think a huge one was like a kind of similar with the production thing about like trusting yourself. There's a thing that happened with us where it's like, I come from a background of playing in a bunch of bands and having all the experiences of playing shows for like since I was a teenager and playing in bands and navigating all of that sort of stuff, which has kind of imparted like certain skills coming from that. But then Heather coming into the space, not having that background, but having the huge talent in terms of vocal performance and also just in general performance, like on stage, is something that a lot of people in bands don't necessarily have. So it was kind of like a great, like the weaknesses that are on my side perfectly complement Heather's strengths and vice versa. So it was one of those, like, we started writing songs and then essentially I turned around to all the other bands I was playing with and I was like, hey guys, I'm going to be busy. So I'm just letting you know now that I'm going to step back from this like a little bit. I'm still going to play the shows, but like I'm not going to be organizing stuff because I'm going to be busy doing this.
Yeah. And it's...
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Your wedding will be one of the happiest days of your life, and Blue Nile can help you celebrate it with a gift that'll last a lifetime. Whether you're looking for wedding bands, a gift for your partner, or an unforgettable thank you to your bridesmaids, Blue Nile offers a wide assortment of jewelry of the highest quality at the best price. Plus, expert guidance to ensure you find the perfect piece. Experience the convenience of shopping Blue Nile, the original online jeweler since 1999, at BlueNile.com. BlueNile.com.
Yeah, it's very, very strange. I like still have no idea. I feel like I'm going to get found out, you know? But it's, I guess in the end, it's just like that communication, like what a key part of it is like listening to it and be like, what do we feel when this happens? What do we want to do with this? Like, what do we want to say? And like kind of working backwards, I guess. It's a really nice process. Like, and over time, like I've been confident to have input on like other elements of it too, not just like the top line. Like I bullied Jono into that guitar solo in somehow. I was like, it's gonna have one, like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. And so yeah, I think it's like the interesting place of being able to like being trained on the theory of doing something versus like just going with gut instinct.
Like I think you've got such a clear line into that gut instinct of whether or not something's right or wrong yet. And I think that's such a useful tool to have in the band because there's this kind of driving force that's like, it's some like for any like technical or theoretical reason, something could be right about the music, but then it's wrong because it's just not done yet. And just having constantly between the two of us, the idea of like, if it can get better, we'll find it. We'll find the solution to the problem. It might take us a while. A song might sit there unused for a handful of years, but we'll end up figuring it out because the two sides of what we bring to the table balance each other out. Mm. Yeah.
I love that. I don't think there's many excuses for condoning bullying, but I think that is one of the positive cases that we will listen to.
Bullied into being awesome.
Exactly. Is there a song on the record that obviously it is the band's baby child, whatever you kind of want to refer to it as, and you never want to play favourites, but is there a song or a track that you hope resonates with the audience now that it is out?
Wildfire?
Yeah, I think Wildfire would be really fun.
Yeah.
I think a huge one for that is I think it's hard to describe because that song exists in a space for me where it's like probably the most risky song in terms of its compositional structure, where I look at it and go, with that song, we lose a lot of the safety net of structure that we have in our other songs. That like we hit the chorus of Wildfire and it doesn't hit in the same way as a lot of our other songs do. So it feels like a risk to us. Like the safety net is not there with that song in a way that makes it really exciting, but also kind of terrifying.
Yeah. And it's, I think it's pretty raw as well. It's the one that I've been. I was a little bit scared. I'm like, this is the one I like. This is the one I have the most big whirlwind of emotions about. Hope you like it. It feels weird to like have a less like big chorusy chorus on it, and the slow build of it too. The weird that weird synth thing.
Yeah,
I'm obsessed with that. In the after the first chorus, I'm like, this is the best thing.
A huge one as well is like the tempo of it being like so different to what we normally do.
It's kind of seasick.
Yeah.
I realise that what I'm about to say now sounds like I'm sucking up. What my next question was I was going to ask if I might be selfish to talk about my favourite track on the record, which does happen to be right near the end. It also happens to be Wildfire.
Yes! There we go.
So it looks like there is, or it can only count one person, but still, this track I just found, sonically, I want to say sonically arresting. It is different from the other tracks on the album. As you mentioned, the tempo is different. The drums and the vocal delivery, I just kind of found myself kept coming back to the track time and time again. If you wouldn't mind, I guess, talking through the inspiration of that song or where that song kind of was built from.
Okay, so this one has like a very clear lineage for me, which is like in lockdown, I was having the experience of like trying to essentially go like, okay, I can't do anything today, but I'm going to like kind of look at these songs that I really love and try and figure out how they work. And it resulted in like tons of instrumentals that were essentially experiments into different fields. And a huge one for me was listening to this Irish noise rock band called Gilla Band. They changed their name to Gilla Band. And there's a rhythmic push to their music that I like associate almost with like German krautrock music from the 70s. But it's also so noisy and so incomprehensible in places, and it's completely just out of pocket. And I felt like I figured out how this particular song of theirs worked, and I was like, I should try something like that. And then my attempt at it was just like such a swing and a miss, but it had like a great mood to it, and I was just like, I just don't know how to figure this out. And then Heather was like, what if it just had like that like straight kick and snare from Closer by 9 Inch Nails, where it's just boom, boom, across it. And I was like, oh my God, of course. And the whole thing just like unraveled from there, where it's like, the noise rock thing, the 9 Inch Nails thing, the chorus reminds me of Portishead. Like all the pieces just like fit together so immediately after understanding that like, you could convert all of this noise into a song by balancing it out with something straight, like the kick and the snare.
That was also the last addition to the album.
Yeah.
We had already been in talks with people, like with Alex and everything, and planning to record the album. And we were like, what do you reckon about this one? And they were like, are you joking? Yeah.
Of course.
The delivery is fun too, because that was and I remember very vividly Alex in the studio being like, can you do it again and sound like more deranged? Like you need to sound extremely deranged. There was that photo of that possum that broke into a bakery and like ate everything. They found it in the morning just like red-eyed, and it looked unhinged. He's like, you just have to go completely unhinged. And it's like lyrically, I think, interesting because there's like a hesitancy as well. I think that's part of the reason why I'm particularly nervous to show people, because it is kind of like a I don't know. It's like arrogant's not the right word, but it's so driven. I think it probably embodies mostly like the spite, and it's like apocalyptic almost. I think we had like pretty much the whole of the instrumental part of it sorted before we started putting anything else on top of it, and it just it feels like expansive. It's like a wasteland, and there was like, I don't know, in the back of my mind as well, because after the bushfires at the end of 2019 and the start of 2020. It's like this like low simmering like climate anxiety too, and there's just this like back and forth of what nature and earth being like unstoppable, and like wanting to mirror that like out of a sense of just climate anxiety too, like all of this anxiety about everything I have going on, like these are just like things that happen out of, seemingly nowhere, and they're devastating, and like that's the force of which I want to come at this, like that's how much like music and being able to do this like means, like it's so hard to describe. Like all you can do is like point to, like a hurricane and be like that.
Yeah, like this idea of like we're so much of doing music feels like we're having to like justify like not why we should do it, but just kind of like demonstrating to people the amount of care that we have in this and how seriously we take it and how much it means to us. Wildfire is kind of a song that exists as like the distillation of that, where it's like it means so much to us and it gives us so much and it takes so much, and it's this like balancing act there, that having a song that feels so tense but so powerful kind of like is almost like a great reflection of that experience, where it's like you feel like you could take on the entire world, and then also like it's so like at risk.
It's a lot to untangle. We're talking about it now. You kind of don't realize there's so much in it until you start and then can't stop.
Look, I very much appreciate whatever you are willing to share with us and what you have shared with us. So thank you for indulging me on that question. I know that obviously I think you've both said in press over the last few years that you never want to do the same kind of trick twice. It's always exciting when you look at those artists who have back catalogues that have different kind of not projects, but like you don't want to make the same album twice. Can we expect, and I know that we're talking about album 2, so we don't have to harp on it very long, can we expect maybe more of those sonic soundscapes for album 3 maybe?
We've got I think a short list or like a long list of songs already. We're always pushing further. There's like, I think album 1 is like finding our feet, and album 2 is like how far, like like testing the limits. Like we thought somehow would be like jokey joke,
novelty, haha. And then then it turned into our most played song on Triple J. And then we're like, oh, okay.
Okay, when we come at things, we do it wholeheartedly with everything we got. And this is like confirmation that it's worked. And so the third will most likely be the like more extremes, but more confident extremes. A mix as well.
I saw someone talk about a fan of ours who is in the press world said like, if you liked Robert Smith from album 1, our single Robert Smith from our first record, then the new record is a record of songs like Robert Smith, where they're in that rock and punk world. And then I think about if I was to connect the dots between album 2 and hypothetical third one, I would probably point to Wildfire as the like, I would be a record of things that go into that place in the same way that album 2 is a record that follows from Robert Smith.
Yeah.
That is very exciting to hear. And when album 3, whenever that hypothetical album does come to fruition and you're promoting it, obviously more than welcome to come back to the pod and we can discuss further.
Love to.
Very quickly, I know that you are heading out on tour as well in August and September in promotion of the album. Thank you for including Adelaide on the dates, because sometimes we don't get to see all the bands, but we will be there on your Adelaide date. Are you looking forward to being able to tour the album and bring these songs to people?
Absolutely.
Something that kind of shows up with this is we never got to tour the first record. So
of course
we tried so many we were in and out of lockdowns, and there were other bands who got completely unscathed by touring records, but we just got hit by everything along the way, to the point where there's like the joke amongst our audience for a while of like the Cry Club curse, where it's just like we put in all of the effort and time and money that goes into setting up a tour and getting it to work, and then just like a couple of days before it goes like border closed. And obviously for a fair reason, absolutely, but also just it's meant that we're kind of going into this experience like not knowing what to expect, because we don't have the previous version of things to compare against. We don't know what it's like to tour an album, because we spent like we tried 5 or 6 separate times to do the first one, and it just got nixed every step of the way. So now we're like, oh my God, what is this going to be like? You know?
Yeah. We did the album preview show, and it was very small, but it was such a good indication to like feeling people like screaming the songs back at us. We love doing support gigs, but it just gets elevated when people are there, like to see you.
Yeah.
And playing off that, you know, I get to look people in the eyes and make that connection. And Adelaide especially, it was important to us to have Adelaide on there, because it's one of the cities that we've done pretty well in.
Yeah, I feel like Adelaide kind of gets Cry Club in a way that's like really nice.
Well, look, again, thank you very much. We will be there. You'll see us somewhere, maybe not up the front, somewhere there. I'm a little bit older with the horns up, but
amazing.
Look, both Jono and Heather, I appreciate you both very much coming onto the pod and having a chat with us. Congratulations on Spite Will Save Me, which is out now. But yes, thank you again.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much.
The most powerful designer drugs are the digital ones we use daily. And we get high off them. One touch, tap, like, scroll at a time. You know, just like tech creators want us to. Use digital without digital using you. Learn more at sync.ithra.com.